Okay, everybody, welcome back to your crisis coach with the amazing Scott H. Silverman, my friend from San Diego, who's probably going to come on here and brag about his weather and complain or something like that. But, and that's normal for me. So how are you, Scott?
Good. And I should share it. It's good to see you, Fred. I had a day last week that was actually wonderful. And I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but it was a good day. I met with our group, Society of Addiction Professionals. I spent the whole morning with a bunch of people in the business we're in together to help others. And I know Tim is as well, our guest today. And then from there, I had my niece and her kids over, and it was just a wonderful day. I mean, my wife and I got along. Everything was smooth. And I went to sleep that night, and I thank God. I said, you know what? What a great day. I'll take another, please. And I got another, but after day 3, I'm kind of back on the shit. But anyway, it's been a good week, man. So how are you doing? Birthday week for you, right?
I'm well. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, 57. I'm approaching 57, baby.
God, I can't even remember 57.
It's almost over. It's almost over.
All right.
So let's do your guest. Well, not do your guest, but let's talk about your guest.
I think he'd like to be done. So anyway, Tim, welcome to the show. And I want to repeat what I said, that I saw you on I call it a rant. You were expressing yourself in a very passionate way about people who didn't like what you had to say, that they can unfriend you. And if they don't do their due diligence, you'll unfriend them for him. And I thought, I'm not going to listen anymore. I want to see if I can get this guy to join us. And I emailed you. You know what, Tim, you immediately said, I'm interested. Let's talk about it. And I thought, did my mom call you from heaven and say, please talk to my son? He could use some guidance. But you were very agreeable. And I thought, well, is this the same guy that I just saw on the rant? And I didn't want to do any research because I want to kind of come into this interview cold with you, because I don't really know anything about you, but I saw your heart, and I talk a lot about taking that 12-inch trip from your head to your heart, and you clearly have made it. And then you had shared a little bit about your significant other that, well, bring her if you want to. And clearly you haven't, but maybe we'll do that next time. But I want to welcome you. And Tim, tell us about Tim. I was so entertained by your level of, I want to look, my words, angst about, and I don't know what the topic was. Does what I'm telling you, remember what I'm talking about? It was like 3 or 4 weeks.
Exactly what you're talking about. Hi, Scott. Hey, Fred. Okay. Welcome. Thanks for having me on your show. Yeah, I'm Tim Ryan. I'm a chaos agent.
Thank you. Okay.
No, I was going on a rant 2 weeks ago. Wednesday, my wife and I got to go to Washington, D.C. and have a sit-down meeting with Secretary Kennedy and his entire staff. And I came back and, I was really excited. We got to talk about homelessness and the people coming out of prison and what's broken in the treatment industry and peer-driven and education and awareness. And, I put up a video and then you get all these people, oh, you're MAGA, oh, you're this. And it's like, look, you dumbasses. They're all wings of the same bird. Democrat, Republican, I don't care. I'm talking about human beings here. I am sick and tired of people committing suicide. I'm sick and tired of people looking for help and they can't find it because they don't have the right insurance, or they have state insurance, or they got to wait 12 days for a bed. It shouldn't be like this. And I'm the guy that 13 years ago today was an inmate in the Illinois Department of Corrections. That's where I ended up finally getting sober. And my first time going to treatment was January of 1990 when I was 21 years old and Fred was 20 years old, because Fred's behind me age-wise by a few months. And it took me until in and out for 32 years until a judge sentenced me to prison to get sober at 44 years old. And that's kind of where it all started, in a friggin' prison cell. And I'll give you the quick 2-minute scenario. I went into prison at 44. I was married. I had 4 kids. I had a beautiful 5-bedroom house, 3-car garage. And I had an office in the Wrigley building downtown Chicago. And I couldn't stay sober. And I got my third DUI. I hit a few cars. I put 4 people in the hospital, one being a 9-month-old baby. Thank God they're all okay, because I don't remember a thing because I was dead on the scene. It was my 7th overdose. Without Narcan, I wouldn't be alive. But I fought that case for 21 months, OD'd another time. But anyhow, when I went to prison, I was 44 years old. 158 pounds, skin and bone, walking death. I'm 6'1". I've averaged 200 pounds my entire life, and I went into Cook County Jail, brought 60 bags of heroin in with me because I didn't want to be dope sick. Go figure. Thank God I didn't get caught. If I would have got caught with that, it's 15 to 45 years first offense across the board. But I got into a prison called Sheridan, and I kicked 5 grams heroin a day and a gallon of vodka in a prison cell. I shit and puked myself for 2 weeks. I didn't sleep a wink for a month, and I'll never forget that. But I finally got transferred to Sheridan, which had a therapy. It's still a medium prison. I got 7 years. I ended up doing 13 and a half months. Because you get 3 for the third DUI, 3 years for my fifth driving on revoke and the spoon and syringe, but I only got to do the top number. But anyhow, my cellmate was a Chicago gang chief of 30 years. And Big Perk and I plugged into the 12 steps, read about 400 or 500 books, wrote 2 business plans. And my wife divorced me in prison, lost her home in foreclosure. My worst fear was my oldest son was going to die from an overdose. He OD'd 2 more times. And I got out 13 and a half months later, December 16th of 2013. So when I walked out of prison, 13 and a half months sober for the first time in my life. And I had a little townhouse my ex-wife and mommy had rented for me. My mommy paid my bills for 3 months and said, you're on your own. And I went back into the technology space for a few months. I commuted 2.5 hours each way by 2 trains and a bus. I commuted 5 hours a day to work, but I was at a meeting every night. But I ended up setting up a nonprofit, a bunch of support groups. On my 21-month sobriety date, my oldest son, Nicholas, died from an overdose. I'm out of prison 8 months. My kid dies. I went to a meeting. I never looked back. In my son's passing, he kind of opened the doors for what I do today. Because after he died, the next day I'm on the front page of, I think, the Chicago Sun-Times, and it said anti-heroin crusader loses son to overdose. And, I went to a meeting that night, but since my son's passed away, August 1st, a couple days ago, was 12 years ago that Nick's passed away. And it just seems like yesterday. I've been to over 200 funerals. I've assisted well over 10,000 people, some way, shape, or form, into recovery, into sober living. I'm an interventionist. I speak nationwide. I run concierge treatment. I consult with the treatment program. I coach. I companion. I'm in the mix of this stuff 24/7. My wife is 20 plus years sober. She was a supermodel and an actress. Her addiction took her to hanging herself in the psych ward. We'll get Jenny on your show. But if you ever saw Sober House or Celebrity Rehab, that's my wife, Jennifer Menez. And then she did 4 seasons, Real Housewives. And then she started speaking all over the country. And we partnered up almost 8 years ago to speak, to do interventions, to help people, fell in love. And I packed up, I moved to LA, and this is all I do. I get to help people. I take people from dope to hope, helping one person at a time. How's that?
That's excellent.
There's my story. I'm sticking to it. Have a great day, guys. Talk to you later. Bye. That's what I do.
So you're only working part-time, it sounds like,
Yeah.
and you lack a little passion for helping others. So that's okay. We'll work with you on that.
It's funny, Scott. I go against the system. I'm the guy that's outside of the box. And I think more people are starting to, because the system's broken, and you know it as well as I do.
Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully, Tim, if you haven't had a chance, I want you to Google me, because almost everything you shared, and Fred will attest to it. I'm in this funeral avoidance campaign I've been on for years now. My second book's The Opioid Epidemic. I ran a prison reentry program for 15 years and always have been in the helping people business since I've been sober, and I got sober in 84. And, thank God I've had this continuous sobriety. I don't, and it's funny because working with people coming out of prison, I always got challenged, and I taught in the class that, say, hey, Scott, you don't know anything about my history, my background, and you've never been to prison, so you have no idea. And I would say, these guys are coming out of the 1 yard all buffed out, and they want to punch me, and because it's my house, and I want to just say, look, the difference between you and I is simple. Do you know what it is? And then they'd really get red in the face and angry, and they go, tell me. I go, I didn't get caught.
It's the truth. It's I'll tell you, the most powerful thing for me is going back into prisons and speaking. I got an email 2 days ago from Sheridan Correctional Center, the prison I was an inmate in Illinois, and as soon as I got out, a new warden came in, Warden Gomez. And as soon as I was off parole, that warden called me. And he says, hey, Tim, it's Warden Gomez. I said, hey, Warden, what's up? He said, hey, I've been watching what you do. I've seen you on TV and stuff. He said, would you come back into the prison and speak to the inmates? And I've been in that prison 30 times. Last year, I brought my wife and a buddy of mine, Jay, who's an actor and a comedian, and his sponsor. And we went in there for 2 days and spoke to 2,500 inmates. And ironically, when you come out of prison in Illinois, you get a TASC agent and a parole agent. Parole agent keeps you out of prison. And a TASC agent makes sure you have food stamps. Do you have housing? Do you need treatment? Do you need help getting a job? Well, I didn't need TASC. But when I got off parole, I started helping a lot of inmates coming in and out of the system as you did, and keeping them out of jail. And we sent a lot of them to treatment and paid for them to get in sober living. 2 months ago, TASC had their 50th annual gala in Chicago. And for the first time in 50 years, they gave an award called the Freedom Award to a graduate from the program. And they flew me and my wife in, and I was the first person in 50 years to graduate that program to get that award. And what was really ironic, they're supposed to have the governor, and Tom Dart, the Cook County Sheriff, shows up. So I'm there. I have my wife and my oldest son, Max, who used to be my full-time driver and video guy. And I invited Dave Gomez, my former warden. And he now works for Tom Dart, the Cook County Sheriff, as the undersheriff. So Tom Dart walks in, gets introduced to me, and he says, hey, Gomez, what are you doing here? And he said, my good friend Tim Ryan invited me. And Tom Dart kind of looks, he says, I need to know about this story. And we sat there and talked for an hour and a half. And now he's got us coming into Chicago to work in the Cook County Jail and work with WestCare and the inmates. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. If you got a heartbeat, you got hope. And guess what? Good people end up behind the wall. And there's some scumbags in there that never need to come out. And that's just a fact. But a majority of the people need people like Scott and Fred and Tim walking into those prisons, giving those men hope, and then holding their hand and guiding and directing them when they get out. Because somebody did that for me, and you guys are doing it for other men, and that's what this shit's all about.
One of the stories that we have in our history is the Secretary of Corrections. California's got the biggest incarceration nation. They call the U.S., but 33 prisons in California. And I had a visit one day from the Secretary of Corrections and his senior team, because we had done a study through Cal State San Marcos showing that our program actually reduced recidivism. And we did that through housing and workforce development, because, you need a job to get a house, and you need an address to get a job. And we provided those two basics. And that was kind of my springboard for, helping people on a bigger level. And he came in and he said, I wanted to introduce myself. He used to be Inspector General. Then he became the Secretary of Corrections. I can't remember his name now. It's been so long. He came to me, pulled me aside. He goes, look, I want to tell you something. You're really bad for business. I said, you mean your business? He said, yes. we like 95% of our people returning back to prison. I said, well, they do anyway. We catch 1 or 2%. And he laughed. He goes, I came here with my team because I really want to understand so we can weave some of the things that you're doing with corrections. It's hard in California. The unions are strong.
Oh, it's so, yeah. You got too many in the state side and the federal side. And I got a buddy of mine. I'll get him on your show, Josh Swindell. Really an interesting cat. Josh was a pro skateboarder with Tony Hawk 20 plus years ago. And they were young and they were outside of some bar and got in a bar fight. Some guy beat up Josh's friend and Josh went and knocked the guy, clocked him, and the guy hit the ground and he killed him. And he got 20 years in prison and did 20 years for murder and he's out now. But man, he brings all of us into the prison systems all over Northern California. I got another buddy of mine, Ed. He's doing Zoom meetings that we're speaking in over 100 prisons a week nationwide. And it was interesting because one of the things I brought up with Secretary Kennedy, I said, look, the prison I was in, Sheridan, it was a medium prison and they still had a little bit of general pop, but it was a privilege to be in this therapeutic community and it was structured and there was accountability and you jack it off, you're out of the program. But they had job skills. I mean, you could learn all these job trades. So when you walk out of the prison, you can go get $25 an hour getting a job. You're sober and you've got the tools to succeed in life. That's what people need. And you know what? I'm glad that there's people like me and you that are causing these wardens headaches because I'm sick of it being a revolving door. It doesn't need to be.
Well, in California, it changed its name and add on rehab, corrections and rehab years ago because they wanted to keep the funding going. Anyway, we can talk more about that as well. But I want to focus today. I want to throw it back over to Fred because I know he's got a couple of highly intellectual questions that I just can't put together in my brain anymore.
I want to ask, hey, Fred, do you know there's a National Fred Society?
No,
Freddie,
no.
my surgeon who I grew up with, he had these bumper stickers. Freddie or not, here I come. Better off Fred than dead. There is a National Fred Society, and you ought to join it.
I think I should. I definitely should. But I think it's interesting how you started it by saying you went to Washington, talked with Kennedy, and then people give you shit. Like you have a choice of who you speak to.
Exactly.
If he's the one in charge of the issue that you need resolved, you have to talk to him. So it does come down to same shit, different asshole, in those points. But it is interesting. The guy is who he is. We know what he is. We know who he is. So you being called that is just blindsiding, and it's just dumb to go into it.
It's interesting, Fred, because I was a guest of the 2016 State of the Union address, and I think Obama talked on opiates for less than 2 minutes. And I've been to Congress a couple times, but it's interesting. I had a congressman out of Illinois, Randy Holgren, who became a really good friend, and he ended up getting voted out. But Randy said, Tim, let me explain politics to you. He said, I can take you to Congress. I'll get you to speak for 15, 20 minutes. They will give you a standing ovation. The second you walk out that door, they already forgot who you are. They're only working on their agendas that fit their needs. And I respected that. But the problem with politics, too, is you get to know someone and then they get voted out. Or then this bird changes and but I just tried to do my part. And it was interesting because I looked at them and they said, you and your wife are so knowledgeable. And I said, look, I've scoured the country. I said, there's nothing in this for me. I'm willing to help. I'm not looking for a paycheck. I want more access to treatment. I don't want people to kill themselves. And I want our kids to have a better knowledge of this stuff going into schools. Teach them about this and prevent it before it happens. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, the education side of this has been lost completely at this point where they're shying away from it more than going towards the light. They're going into the dark. They'd rather I know nothing.
Think about it. We go into a community, they hire my wife, we'll come in, we'll speak at a high school or have the middle school in the morning, do the high school in the afternoon, we'll do a big community event, have all the parents come, and we'll sit around and meet with families, but that's it. Then we leave. And I'm like, half of the students have no issues. They're not struggling with drugs, but what they're struggling is at home with the single parent that's an alcoholic or a drug addict or food on the table or sexual abuse. These kids have no outlets. Who are they supposed to talk to? The guidance counselor? Why don't we have some more peer-driven support groups at school for the students to help each other? I mean, this stuff is so common sense. But they were more worried about pushing a woke agenda and all this goofy nonsense and reality of the cell phone technology is destroying kids. They're being raised on technology. This generation today doesn't know how to ask a girl or a guy out on a date. They don't know how to open a car door for a female. I was just talking with a buddy on the way to where I'm parked right now, and I said, I'm always thinking of ideas. I said, we need to start men empowering men, because I saw a video, some 25-year-old Asian guy yesterday does a video. He's in LA. He said, look, I'm a professional. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't know how to meet people. And it's like, I wish more people had this thing called recovery, because it's the coolest thing in the world, but it's our little secret society. People aren't drinking and doing drugs. People don't know how to live life today because they were raised on technology.
Yeah, and it's true, but there are answers out there for that. I am a single man who doesn't drink or do drugs.
Yep.
And Scott, we talked about it a few weeks ago. I go to Barnes and Noble. I go to library. I go to where I want to meet somebody that's interested in the same things I'm interested in.
Bingo. Bingo.
They exist. You just have to know how to talk, of course, and how to take an L more than you take the W. But, that's life in general. I aim high. My batting average is low. So we're doing okay, though. Right, Scott?
Yeah, Fred and I have never met, and I'm his best friend. So he's going to Barnes & Noble way too much, and he's overdressing. So I'm trying to work with him. Maybe you can help him, Tim.
Fred, where's home base for Fred?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. Nice and hot out there right now. Worst airport in the world to have connecting flights to. I avoid Charlotte like the plague. And Atlanta.
Busy.
Very busy. Very busy. Good recovery out there, though, I'll tell you that.
I just moved here. About 8 weeks ago. So from Connecticut. So it's all new to me. So it's exciting still.
That's very cool. Good. That was like, I was talking to somebody the other day, actually a client. People come into money and bad things happen. And I'm driving this client who came into too much money, had been sober 8 years and became a lawyer and relapsed, and family, mom and dad died. And it was traumatic, but I was driving him to treatment the other day and he's kind of crying. And I said, what's wrong? And he said, I have no friends. He said, I have you and I got one other person. And I said, you need to understand something. When I moved to LA, I knew my wife 7.5 years ago. I said, look in my phone. I've got over 5,000 phone numbers of people in recovery in Los Angeles that I can call anytime. Now, I know a bunch of them, but I roll with about 100, and I'm really close with about 10. And I said, they're all through the rooms of recovery. That's where all my friends are. That's it. They're all sober.
Mm-hmm.
You want what I have, you do what I do. Simple as that. But everybody wants to get to the end of the rainbow without adding any color. Scott, how many times you get people say, hey, I want to do what you do. I want to speak. I want to build cool businesses. And it's like, all right, great. Well, go to prison, get out of prison, lose everything, have your kid die, stay sober, then you can do what I do. You can't do what I do. I can give you some tools, but you do you, I'll do me, and we'll all support each other.
No, I listen to your point about the government. When my opioid epidemic book came out almost 6 years ago now, I sent a copy to every governor with a really nice letter, really engaging, making it easy for them. I got 4 thank you notes, and I got 1 book returned by somebody up in the Northeast that said, we can't accept gifts. And every governor, and I put the book together, it took 3 years. So 9 years ago when I started it, everybody was complaining about the opioid crisis. And this was before fentanyl really became a big conversation, because Oxycontin was still around, and the Sackler family were still cranking out 1 billion pills a year. And everyone was prescribing them, and pain docs were making a fortune, and Big Pharma was making a fortune. And I remember when the Sackler people decided, it's time for us. Purdue said, you know what? We're going to change the way we do business. I remember they fired 175 pharmaceutical reps. And they said, and this is their big thing with the media, we fired our reps. And I'm like, are you kidding? Your entire customer base is already addicted. You don't need sales reps. So,
Nope.
It was funny watching that whole transition. So I've been at it, and I still go to 7 meetings a week, every day, every morning.
It's funny when I put my book out, From Dope to Hope. Actually, I got to send you guys some copies. I wrote a book called From Dope to Hope, and it's on Amazon. Buy it. I make $6, you cheap pricks. No, but I donate all that money to help people. But when I put it out, I self-published it, because it would have been another 6 to 12 months to get a publisher. But I wanted to get it out because I had that hit. And then in 2017, you can go to Amazon Prime or Apple TV and Google Dope Man. I had a document. It was supposed to go to series, but A&E did a documentary basically of what I do daily. And it was hardcore. We had a film crew with us. It was all real. I got a prostitute away from a drug dealer who threatened to shoot us up and kill us. And I'm the guy that'll walk into a trap house and I will walk out with the person. But, this stuff has changed so much since the heroin to the fentanyl, but it hasn't. They say overdose deaths are going down, but people are still dying at outrageous numbers. Suicides through the roof, alcoholism's through the roof. I mean,
well, come on, hey, Tim, let's get real. The overdoses have been reduced from 110 down to 80,000, so it's only 80,000, brother.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
down
how
24%,
people
down 24%, and that came out of Kennedy's office. The CDC, actually, the CDC announced that. And my attitude is, you know what? That's because they're reclassifying suicide, or overdoses as suicides. And the accidental overdose, in my opinion, has not gone down, because in San Diego, 95% of individuals are arrested under the influence of some illegal substance or illicit substance is 95% is laced with fentanyl. So and because it's a synthetic, and because you can make it at home, and because you can get the precursors in the black market, anybody can do it. And that's not going to, and the cartel, they're not giving up their $50 billion business.
Nope. And it's not going away until we send troops in and completely eradicate them. But people have still got this, compassion, and, they're homeless. And 95% of the homeless people not only have addiction, they need mental health help. They don't need to be put into housing. They need long-term friggin' treatment, 12 to 18 to 24 months. Then you can transition them into housing. But we've got these complete imbeciles running these blue states, and I'm not trying to get into politics, but I'll take the way Ron DeSantis runs Florida a hell of a lot better than the way Gavin Newsom runs California all day long, or Pritzker runs Illinois. They're shit shows. And they don't care. People are dying left and right, and nobody cares. It's all, Senator Dick Durbin, I was flipping through, he had wrote me a really nice letter, and I can remember I did some overdose awareness events at Federal Plaza in Chicago, and my parents are huge Democrats. Sorry to admit it, but I'm adopted, so we'll blame that on them. But that was the proudest point in my life, hearing Dick Durbin say, hey, if you need help, to my parents, saying, hey, you call my friend Tim Ryan. But on the flip side, I haven't had a phone call with Dick Durbin in 10 years. You're so powerful out there. People can only do so much. And we can blame the government. Now that I get involved with the government, I see all the bureaucracy and red tape and monies that are just mismanaged. And it's the boots on the ground that are going to help people. I'm sorry. We've got to
Well,
do it. And
exactly.
there's only,
Exactly what you were saying about, I don't even think this is a political problem because it's a problem just as much as in the blue states as the red states
yeah,
with overdoses and stuff. Everybody's got their problems, whether it's something we deal with or we don't. And that's the problem. If we make it political, then it's sort of like a comedian getting political. 50% of your fans are now mad at you. So,
yeah,
but I believe me and Scott talk about it all the time. The problem is, just like you mentioned, how Obama spoke for 2 minutes about it, because nobody votes on this stuff. They vote
right.
on their taxes, they vote on their jobs, and that's it. Nobody's going to vote for a homelessness bill. They don't care about the homeless
No,
because it
but
doesn't until it affects them. Then they
until it
complain about
affects them. That's it. I mean, it was like when all these, I've buried 58 of my son's friends or acquaintances from Oswego, Illinois, from Kendall County, Illinois. 58 kids in 4 years I buried. You would think there would be nobody does anything. Hell, that high school, I offered to come in and speak for free. They wouldn't let me come in because I caused chaos in that town. And it's just, it's frustrating, but you just got to put one foot in front of the other. That's it. And that's why I can help one person at a time. But we need bigger voices. And originally, Scott, that's why I cause chaos. You know, I did another rant on Suboxone and Subutex the other day. I do my homework. 11 years ago, I went and met with a double board certified psychiatrist in Illinois that just left a premier program. And he's one of the first guys doing this MAT. And I walk into his office and he says, Mr. Abstinence, what are you doing here? I said, Doc, I need to learn. He said, sit down. He said, Tim, there's three types of people. He said, the people that I'll put on Suboxone for medical detox. That's it. He said, then there's a group that I'll keep on 18 to 24 months, but they need to work with me weekly. They need to work with a therapist weekly, and they need to have a sponsor and go to meetings every day and use no other mind-altering substances. And he said, then there's about 2 to 4% of the people they'll be on the rest of their life. And I said, good. But now you look at it, it's all these doctors just prescribing Suboxone, and there's no therapy, there's no recovery, they're using other mind-altering substances. That's not benefiting anybody. We got to keep them alive. Really? Go get on Suboxone for 2 years and go to jail. And tell me what it's like kicking that or kicking methadone. You know, they don't tell you the side effects.
Harm reduction in MAT without behavioral health support is like switching somebody from heroin to methadone without any life support. I mean, life skills are important. And, you've been institutionalized without having some life skills pre-release and then a handoff to, that safety net I think you mentioned with someone who helps with the tasking. We don't have that in California. I've never seen that where you've got a handler before you get out who works with your PO to help you with the life skills. So,
Right.
It's interesting stuff. And Fred, real quick, because we got to wrap up, Tim. Fred, have you ever heard anybody that we've ever talked to that's so aligned with the way I talk?
I know it's the similarities are right there. The political parts are different, but that's just human beings with opinions, and that's fine. We're allowed. That's what makes us so great. This country, we have the ability to choose sides if we choose to.
Well,
and we
we're
can still
pretty
get
aligned.
along.
I mean, the homeless thing, I don't. The housing first model for me didn't work. It doesn't because you give nobody support. You can't put somebody in a home and go, okay, now drink inside and stay away from ambulances and lower the cost of expenses in our community. That doesn't work. And when you give somebody a tool, but then you take it away from them or you don't offer them a tool. And Tim, we work mostly now with veterans, which is a population I've never served until about 12 years ago. It's awesome because when you talk about helping veterans, everybody gets excited. Even they may not want to help you, but they get excited. But homeless, the community throwaways, and Los Angeles, 2 hours north of me, where I think you said you are, but they have 70,000 homeless people. How is that possible?
It's outrageous. And I'm at the VA every month speaking there. I do a ton of work with veterans. I built one of the largest VA programs in the country in Delray Beach, Florida. Unfortunately, the treatment center sold, but I brought my, so I walk out of prison and I meet a cop. And he had a program called Dare to Know, and I called him at the police station. Long story short, we started The Cop and the Convict. And Rich is a cybercrimes expert, a SWAT sniper, and a detective, and he was going after child predators. And so now we train school resource officers on school shootings, on how to be aware what's in the technology. I mean, when my son died, every text message and every Facebook, Snapchat were all drug related. So I can give you monitoring software to mirror your kid's cell phone so you know what they're up to. But people want a quick fix for everything. You got to take the time to learn these things.
They want to love them to wellness with no. And you know, if you and I and Fred were talking about diabetes, okay, another disease, nobody would approach it the same way. It's the only maladaptive behavior that we look at people, go, you're not ready, or you have to hit a bottom first, or you know what, maybe you need to go out and hurt yourself more, or maybe be polydrug, or go from beer to alcohol. It's just
insanity.
And we'll talk. Look, give me a buzz when you get time. Let's do a Zoom and do a download and figure out how.
Forget that. I'm coming down to San Diego to hang out with you. That's what I'm coming to do.
Don't threaten me, because I hear people say that all the time. Oh yeah, I want to hang out with you. I'm the guy, and I'm sure you are too. Nobody wants to take on a long trip in a motorhome. Not with where we come from and our perspective. You're my brother from another mother. It's been awesome having you here today. I can't wait to see what our journey together looks like. Fred, any closing remarks from you?
I don't have anything major, but like he was mentioning about time and how these kids aren't any longer. We deal with this every week, even with our videos here. We already know nobody's watching this whole video, because if we don't give them the information in a 3-minute time span, their simple little brains they just switch to the next video. We live off shorts. And that's what's affecting this educationally too, because if somebody sat down and listened to the whole 45 minutes that we're going to end up with, then they'd learn something. But they can't learn it in a 2-minute short without, because that's all on my side of the video production, at least. My job is to get them to hear. But I can't make them. I can't make them stay. I can't force them to stay. But I want to thank you. I think it was interesting. I love your energy. I'm sure we'll be fine. Where could people reach you? How would you like people to reach out to you?
Easiest way is Tim Ryan Dope Man on any platform, or just go to my website, dopetohope.com, DOPETOHOPE.com. Bam, okay. 844-611-HOPE.
Okay, excellent. And Scott, you want to give your phone number?
Yeah, I do. 619-993-2738, 619-993-2738. And I dare you to call me. I absolutely dare you. And I'm one of those guys, Tim, you Google me. I do this on TV all the time. And people say, oh my God, why would you give out your number? And my answer is, how can you help somebody if you can't talk with them? And if they're not willing to make a phone call, the odds are they're not willing to take the next step to save their own life.
Amen. Hey, I give mine out in prison. I don't care. Here you go. 312-502-8671. Give me a call. Let's help some people.
Excellent.
They'll hunt you down.
Okay,
Fred,
Scott, so that's going to be it. I'm going to wrap it up. This is your Crisis Coach with Scott H. Silverman and myself, Fred Carroll. And if nobody has told you they love you today, we love you. And we will see you again next week.